Welcome, Quantitative Research Methods, IDSL 845. We are on Module 7. We're going to be talking about literature review and critiques, critiquing literature. So you've recognized this chart. This is the components of the research process. And we're taking a little step back through these components because we have spent some time talking about variables already, talking about measurement. We will be getting to sampling methods next in Module 8. We've talked about hypotheses, talked about identifying good research problems. We've talked about data analysis a little bit in terms of descriptive statistics. So we're going back right now. We're going to talk about the literature review, and we're going to talk about how to critique journal articles. Because this is a little bit like a chicken and the egg. I mean, practitioners go to the literature to look for information about information that can help inform their work. Researchers go to the literature to look for unsolved problems. Regardless, practitioners, pure theoretical researchers, the process in the literature review is the same, and the process for critiquing research is the same. Voigt argues that you have to have a fairly decent grasp of the terminology and the methodology before you can critique the literature on your subject matter. And that's why we talked about some of these other things first, so that you have a basic understanding for what you might want to be looking for when you read published journal articles and research in order to get more information about your topic. So we'll talk about critiquing in a moment, talk about the important questions that you need to ask as you read through journal articles. And let's talk about actually conducting a literature review. Let's move off of this slide. The purpose of the literature review is to bring together information, especially in your research, to bring together information on the topic that is already known. Each researcher tries to add incremental information to the great body of literature. And that's all that is expected of you as a researcher too. So if this is the information that we know about a certain topic, then the whole point of your dissertation and the whole point of your research is not necessarily to shift the paradigm. Sometimes that happens, but that's not necessarily what you're setting out to do. The purpose of our research is so often to just incrementally add to something about what is already known. Adding this piece to the literature. So the purpose of the literature review is to start off, okay, what do we already know about a topic? So we take what we're trying to do, and what a researcher is trying to do in an article, is to take what we already know and set up the need for, or the significance of, the research that is going to be undertaken in the current study. So it puts the current research in context. And what I mean by current research is it puts your research in context. A study. Here's what we know, here's what we're trying to add. This is why it's important, because it hasn't been studied before, or we're going to try a different way of studying a topic. So it sets up the context, and it talks about the importance of why I need to add this little piece, this little step in the research process. And here's where we talk about adding incrementally to what is already known. And so if you think about your research as adding incrementally to what is already known, then I think that takes a little bit of stress and pressure off of a researcher to know that you don't have to come up with a paradigm shift on a topic. you're just trying to add that next step, add a little bit more information to the topic. The other thing that's good about a literature review is that it gives research ideas. One of the best things about reviewing literature is the bibliographies in those journal articles, because the bibliographies lead you to other research on the topic that you're interested in. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to search strategies. So in terms of the literature review, places that you want to look for information on your topic include the primary sources. So researchers that have done their own research, they've using primary sources of information, they're running their own statistical analyses on their data. Those are primary sources, and you'll find those in journal articles or journals, periodicals. Another source is secondary sources, and typically you'll find secondary sources to be books, but sometimes in journals you'll also find journal articles that are more of a meta-analysis, meaning they are summarizing or they're synthesizing a lot of the research that has come before. That would be considered a secondary source. That author is not necessarily conducting their own research, but simply summarizing or synthesizing research that has come before. That's what you see in books often. Those are considered secondary sources. When it comes to searching strategies, I always like to say, when in doubt, ask the librarian. So searching strategies obviously have come full circle when it comes to doing research because of the availability of electronic resources on the internet. But research databases available through the library, just searching online for keywords, for specific journals and periodicals where you know there's a lot of good information, trade magazines, newspapers, listservs. All of these are different ways to look for information. I mean, simply starting off with a Google search is one idea to delve into a topic. But I would definitely use the resources in the libraries that are available to you at Ferris State, and or even closest to you at your own institutions. One strategy that I like to use is looking at abstracts. When you are searching for research, you don't have to read entire articles in order to try to find the information that you're looking for. You can look at abstracts, and there are databases that are just databases of abstracts. What I like about abstracts is it's typically a short paragraph, maybe 70 to 90 words, very short paragraph about what the research is about, so the main research problem, what the hypotheses were, a quick sentence or two about the methods that were used, and somewhere in there you actually might see information about the sampling method that's used, the sample in the abstract. So the methods and or the statistics that are used to study the problem, and the primary findings. So I love abstracts because you should be able to learn what the problem is, what methods were used, to whom the authors intend to generalize the findings, so the population, the statistics that were used, and then the major findings, meaning did the author find that the hypotheses were supported or not? All in 70 to 90 words. That's why abstracts are so critical. The second strategy is one that I just mentioned, and that is using bibliographies. This is the first strategy I like to use for literature review. Second strategy in finding research is using the bibliographies. If you find a journal article that is particularly relevant to your research topic, use the bibliography to find all of the other research on that topic, other sources. This ends this part of the module's presentation. Please move on to review the next part